Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Digital High Room, where this week Michael and Benjamin's podcast is your only pop culture podcast that isn't discussing Infinity War, even though I, Michael, one of the co-hosts, and Ben, the other co-host, say hello, Ben.
Hello, Ben.
Have both seen it. Isn't that right, Ben?
That's actually incredibly true. For the first time ever, Michael, I actually saw a Marvel movie before you did.
You did see it before me, Ben, by a matter of hours, but it was before me.
But it was a matter of hours nonetheless, and it was before you.
It was very impressive.
Jeez, it was very good.
Well, Ben, look, do you want to explain the rationale for why we're not talking about Infinity War?
Look, Michael and I, we love you. We think you're great, and we don't reckon that you want a ton of spoilers in your weekly podcast. So we're going to hold off until you've gotten a chance to see it with us. And then we're going to discuss it as a team.
As a team. As a whole. Yeah.
It's going to be a whole thing. We want you to engage. We're going to engage with you. It's going to be symbiotic.
Yes.
We're going to it's give and take.
Or symbiotic, if you take the pronunciation from the new Venom trailer. What a segue.
Oh, smooth as butter. Yeah. Do you mean Spawn 2?
It was very like Spawn, Ben. That's a symbiotic
Spawn
sort of thing that you said there, because I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Yeah, bloody Resident Evil meets Spawn.
Ben, did it fill you with confidence?
I'll be honest, Michael, it didn't.
No, it
Tom
didn't.
Tom Hardy reprised his role from Warrior, 2010's Warrior.
Yes, I remember it well.
Where he just plays a moody, bloody American prick.
That movie, Tom Hardy in Warrior, is the reason that I had many arguments about whether or not I could beat up Tom Hardy.
Ah, because he was so jacked.
No, because he played an MMA fighter on TV. So that means he's probably better at MMA than real MMA fighters.
Is that not how life actually works?
No, Ben, it isn't.
It isn't?
No, it is.
Oh, I've made some serious threats based on some pretty cool mirror fighting that I've done. Oh.
I've seen you mirror fighting, Ben. It's not cool.
It's not pretty.
He does do his mumbly kind of American, we're going to go and get off in this sort of situation.
I've made a living out of hiding in plain sight, and you are not very good at it.
Yeah.
Like, he's just got that real rumbly, bloody... Can't figure. I think he's trying to do the endearing nerdy character occasionally.
It's hard to tell, isn't it?
Did you see? Like, it's very inconsistent. Like, he's like, I'm a reporter. I find what people don't want me to find, and he does that whole thing. And then in the apartment, he's like, I'm sorry.
I'm a bumbling man.
Whoa! He becomes Hugh Grant all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Hugh Grant. I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean for my symbiote to smack you into the wall.
You're half expecting him to fall off a fence and go, whoopsie daisy.
Oopsie daisy. Yeah, they also awful tagline. Release your inner anti-hero.
Yeah.
What a shit tagline.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be release your inner demon.
That's exactly what I was going for. And then anti-hero flashed across the screen. Nobody consciously goes, I'm an anti-hero. That's not a thing.
Yeah, even Punisher wouldn't go that far.
No. No.
Go on.
I don't think we've ever unanimously so much hated a piece of pop culture news, but this just seems silly. It's just so out of step.
And symbiote is a weird way to pronounce it.
It's not Jenny Slate's fault. She probably tried. Oddly strong cast for an oddly shit film.
Look, we've talked about this before. The problem with these movies is Sony doesn't know why people like movies.
I think that's becoming painfully apparent.
They don't understand what it is about movies that people like. So they just kind of throw things at it with their own weird twist on things. What people like about Venom is the Spider-Man's arch nemesis angle. And they've gone, we can do without that, can't we? We just get Tom Hardy to do a kind of a weird voice. And so this is so rambly, but I like how Tom Hardy is also Venom.
Yeah, he does his... No, but then James Earl Jones steps in and does the fucking voice for him occasionally.
But that's Tom Hardy.
That was a big... Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's not just Tom Hardy talking to himself, it's also the big deep voice.
Yeah, that's also Tom Hardy.
Did they must have put a modulator on him or something. He sounds awfully like
that.
He sounds awfully like James Earl Jones.
Yeah, it does.
I was
actually.
half expecting him to say, "Tom, someday all this will be yours."
Yes, or
And it's
Tom,
like,
I'm your father.
we must never go there. Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed very tonally off to me, as in it's so 90s. It down to the weird motorbike scene.
Yeah.
Like, no one's used a motorbike to jump over things with sparkly explosions since Triple X with Vin Diesel.
Or Triple
Like,
X2 with Ice Cube.
Like, nobody's been
Or
using
Triple
scramblers.
X3 with Vin Diesel and Ice Cube.
Also,
Sorry, Ben.
The jump is much less impressive because Red Bull BMX bloody scrambler lads do that without the help of a symbiote.
Yeah, they can just hold on.
They just hold on to the fucking bike.
Although they're not investigative reporters who might also be kind of nerds.
Who are going to do their jobs despite their girlfriends asking them not to do that.
Yeah, well, look, man, we've all been there.
Well, some of you have been there. People who have girlfriends have been
Oh, Ben.
there. No, I just don't do girlfriends.
Ben,
Michael,
you don't need
as
a
you
girlfriend. You have Avengers.
I have Avengers. That's
Yeah.
true. I might go see it again. This might be the first Marvel movie that I will see twice in the cinema.
Oh, wow.
I might go again tomorrow.
Wow.
Or not tomorrow, Saturday.
Ben, I'm going to Prague, so I can't do that.
That's a shame.
Yeah, but I've never revealed my address on this, have I? Have I just revealed that I won't be at home this weekend? Oh, no, look, this isn't even going to be broadcast until I'm home, so we're fine.
Yeah, no, we're grand. This isn't coming out till... Well, I mean, no, it's coming out tomorrow, Michael.
No, Ben, look, I think it's on. We can be honest. We're recording this on Thursday night, having seen Avengers on Wednesday.
Oh, for God's sake,
Look,
Michael.
Ben, the most worrying thing for me about Venom is that it looks like it would fit in tonally very well with The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
It could have.
Ben, who is screaming?
See, that's the pub across the street. You see, there's another football match.
Oh, good.
on.
Okay, I thought there was
another
a
football
symbiote
match.
murder.
No, it's just Tom Hardy going, "Why do I keep picking these fucking movies?"
Ridiculous question.
Yeah, but it also the other look, it could have fit perfectly into Spider-Man. It could have been a great Spider-Man 2 because it's got all the right elements. It could just be Spider-Man as doing an internship because he's a big science geek in the wrong company, and he comes across a bloody symbiote.
Yeah, and there's Eddie Brock investigating it, and he ends up with it halfway through.
There's even more because in the thing, I think one of my least favorite arguments for human experimentation is it could be the next step in our evolution. Nah, fucking couldn't. And then what they do is they try it on a bunch of normal people. It fails with a bunch of normal people, and then lo and behold, our character comes along and he's special, so the symbiote doesn't kill him. What you could have done was you could have had it bond with Peter Parker, who's an enhanced human and could actually sustain being bonded to the symbiote.
Very good, Ben.
And then you could have bloody had him separate with a better understanding of human physiology and bonded to bloody Tom Hardy.
That's very clever.
No.
Look, Ben,
No, we didn't do that.
we'll give it the benefit of the doubt. We're both going to see it, but I'm not excited.
Yeah. That's fair.
Ben,
It's bloody fair.
moving on to things that are good, have you been keeping abreast of Legion?
I haven't, sadly not. My internet connection is still shockingly bad, as I'm sure you're aware, Michael. And I haven't kept up to date. No, go on.
Ironically, Ben,
With it.
your internet connection kind of dropped out on me, so I couldn't hear what you said. Well, I think you were complaining about your internet connection not being great, which is quite an amusement.
Yeah. How meta. How meta.
Look, Ben, I have been keeping up with Legion. It remains very
Excellent.
good. Thoroughly enjoyable.
Good, I'm so happy.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyable.
I love it.
Nicely weird.
I love a good Legion run. Nice and weird.
Yeah.
Nice and weird. Glad to hear
but
it.
Ever so slightly differently weird. It's very good. It's thoroughly enjoyable. I'm enjoying kind of gradually things making sense. I think again it is going to hit the point in the series where I go, oh, now it makes too much sense.
And you're going to dislike it as a result of its sensicalness.
Yeah, not dislike it so much, but once things start making sense, it starts losing a bit of the fun.
Yeah, Yeah, well, I mean, it's fun to be confused and going, what?
Yeah, even
every
on
step of the way.
You could even say that about Legion on an episode by episode and a series wide basis. Most of the episodes, when you don't know what's going on in the episodes, they're the best bits.
They're still very enjoyable as a result of that.
The last episode was one of the weaker ones, I think, but it was still very good. It was still.
Oh, well, that's good.
It was still better than episodes of other things.
It was the lame puppy wolf of a pack of wolves.
Yeah, it was the Ben of the podcast. Ah, gotcha.
Zing.
That's because you saw Avengers before me.
Can we pause this so I can have a little cry under the table, please?
No, Ben, it's late where you are. We have to get this done.
I actually might not be able to make it through the podcast. That really hurt.
Oh, sorry, Ben. Sorry for the zinger.
Yeah.
Secret reveal. Podcast wanker is me.
What a twist.
No, Legion is good, Ben. Get back on it.
That's not really true. I'll get back on it as soon as possible. Under the news, it's mildly interesting or not interesting. I don't know. It depends on how you feel about it, really.
Well, if you're listening to this podcast, you'll probably find it somewhat.
We've gotten some plot revelation for Aquaman, starring Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa.
Aquamomoa. So he's back. And it's going to be
he's back in the sea.
He's back in the sea.
He's under the water.
No, but the villain has been confirmed. It's going to be Ocean Master.
What a terrible name.
Who is? Yeah, it's a fucking shocking name.
Sounds like a yacht.
Ocean Master. Do you dream of a life on the waves? Do you dream of sailing across the seven seas? Well, now you can with the new line of Ocean Master Cruise Lines.
See?
It'd be real good. Good.
Ben, as you know, Ben, I have no idea about who Ocean Master is. So what even is Ocean Master?
What even is Ocean Master? Well, Arthur Curry, also known as Aquaman, is actually half human, half Atlantean.
Like Spock.
Like Spock, very similar, except he's usually all emotion. He's a very emotional man, is our Aquaman.
Yeah. Sometimes he has a spiky hand.
Yeah, sometimes, depending on how we feel about that. Either he's lost his hand in battle against, is it the Anti-Monitor? Could have been the Anti-Monitor. Or Imperex, I can't remember which one he lost his hand to.
Is the Anti-Monitor the guy who keeps an eye on your weird aunties?
Yeah, exactly. He just makes sure that your aunt isn't sipping too much on the booze or isn't trying to insert herself into your life too much or make too many questions about, your cousin's sexual preferences and then judging him on a Christian basis. That's what he does.
I think
that's his whole thing.
You've revealed a lot about yourself there, Ben.
No, it's not my fault my aunt keeps asking about my sexual preferences. Actually, my auntie's a lovely woman, and if she's listening, I'm really sorry. It's not a reflection on you.
We need all the listeners we can get. Leave your auntie alone.
But anyway, Ocean Master is also known as Orm Curry. He is... it's a fucking awful name, isn't it? Anyway, he's Aquaman's half-brother. And he basically is real jealous of Aquaman because Aquaman gets to be the king of the sea and he doesn't, and he feels really left out. He wasn't half Atlantean, and he became exceptionally jealous of his brother's underwater talents.
Oh, he's just a human.
He's just a human. He's so there's an Aqua Man, and then there's a Hugh Man.
Very good.
And basically he got mad jealous. So what he did was he went off and he amassed himself a big old fortune, and he puts it all into kind of enhancing himself and turning himself into an Aqua Human.
Oh, very good.
So
a kind of ocean master, if you will.
Yes, an ocean master, if you will.
Indeed.
Almost like it was built into the name. So the director of the film, James Wan, I'm not really sure. He says that it's going to be a classic story of sibling rivalry.
Oh, like Thor.
So that's what we're going to have. Like Thor, exactly. We're attempting... Michael, you've seen straight through it and to the next point. We're going to have a little Thor ripoff.
Oh,
we're going to have a little Thor ripoff. Although, knowing DCU, it's going to be awful serious.
Yeah.
It's going to be awful bloody serious. It doesn't need to be.
Did your screening of Infinity War come with the Deadpool trailer?
It didn't.
No, it didn't.
It didn't.
Ours did.
They started. Do you know what my screening of bloody Infinity War came with? A very active audience participation, like rounds of applause, cheers.
Just be careful, no spoilers here. Oh, Ben's gone.
Like,
where have you gone, Ben?
They went. Oh, I've disappeared. Have I? Well, I can still hear me.
Oh yeah, you're back.
You're frozen. Okay, we're good. We didn't lose too much. God, it's getting more professional by the week. But
visual, but I can still see your sound.
That's all right. That's all right. You'll come back in eventually, I'm sure.
Ben, speaking of Thor, Ben.
Yes.
Have you been keeping up with the Thor comic books in the last couple of years?
The last Thor moment I had was when he went in search of a new hammer.
Oh, that was a whole thing. He didn't get one. But he was replaced by Lady Thor. And Lady Thor turned out to be Jane Foster.
Jane Foster!
Jane Foster. It was very good, wasn't
very
it?
Clever.
Yeah,
very clever.
I'm the first person who's ever thought of that. But did she die? Anyway, she didn't die. No, I think
she's on her way though.
Yeah, no. Lady Thor died. And Mjolnir died.
Poor Mjolnir.
But Jane Foster survived. But she's not Lady Thor anymore. So it looks like we're getting Thor back. Normal Thor.
Yay! Normal Thor. Thor.
Yeah, just
standard
Thor. Thormal.
Standard Thor.
Stormal.
Store-bought Thor.
No, stop it.
It's too much of a loop. We've gone too far.
Ben.
Yes.
That'll be good anyway. Ben, since we're not talking about Infinity War this week, since we are the only pop culture podcast not talking about Infinity War this week,
go us.
What are we going to talk about instead?
Well, Michael, I don't know if you know, but this is a very special podcast.
Oh, is it?
This is as close as we can get to our 1 year anniversary, Michael.
Oh, how lovely.
Oh, how lovely. Exactly. Oh, how lovely. That will be the name of the podcast. So that's this is as close as we can get to an accurate 1 year anniversary, which is quite significant for
Hooray.
us. So huzzah to us. That's one whole year, ladies and gentlemen.
Who would have thought?
Who would have? I wasn't sure. I'll be honest. I
thought we'd maybe make 6. We get fed up with each other.
What's this? 48?
48 or 48? Yeah, something like that.
48, and we have taken a few weeks off, so that about matches up.
That about makes it right. Actually, it's a year. Congratulations, Ben. Happy 1 year. Happy paper anniversary.
Happy paper anniversary, Michael. Well done us. I don't know if you remember our first podcast, Michael, it being so long ago, but you did a pitch.
I did, Ben. It was the Moon at Night.
The Moon Knight pitch. Moon Knight. Yeah, we did a whole pitch on that, featuring Christina Milian and Rami Malek and things like that.
Yeah.
So I thought, in a nice little nod, a doff of the cap, if you will,
indeed,
to our original podcast, I'd do a pitch as well.
Oh, it's like a tables have turned sort of thing.
A tables have turned kind of thing. Because I have done a pitch before on the podcast, Michael.
Right.
Let's be honest, it wasn't my finest work. Let's be honest.
Although one of our most viewed episodes.
Is it?
Saga, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
That's fucking mad. There you go. Not my finest work, but nobody agrees with me. Wonderful news.
Yeah.
That's the kind of not finest work you want. Today, I kind of looked around and tried to find not obscure character, but a character that doesn't really necessarily get the limelight as much as possible.
Like a Moon Knight.
Like a Moon Knight, a similar Moon Knight. But I decided to stay away from Marvel because you, Michael, really have a forte in Marvel. You kind of nail Marvel most of the time. You're pretty good at it.
And hold on, who else do I nail? Ladies. No, one lady who listens to this. I'm sorry.
Katie, if you're listening, I made him say that. So don't worry too much. Don't worry too much. Anyway, moving on from there.
Yeah, moving on from that.
Oh, you're gonna get in so much trouble.
I'm fine. I'll be all right.
You're gonna be all right. Anyway, I've chosen to do DC instead, so I've gone with Deadman, Michael.
Ben.
Yes.
I'm not terribly familiar with Deadman.
So go on, ask the question then, Michael. When you're done drinking milk in the middle of a bloody podcast, Michael, my God,
I'm trying to keep my gains.
If Michael's just come back from the gym. He's wearing a Captain America t-shirt. He's so pumped.
It's actually
since bloody Infinity War.
Ben, it's not actually a t-shirt. It's a rash guard. So it's figure hugging. As you can see here. Yeah, the ladies and gentlemen of the crowd can't see, but you can see.
Not unlike Steven Rogers' uniform.
I'm protecting my gains.
Protecting your gains from rashes. It's very good of you. Anyway, when you're done drinking a pint of milk like a bloody TV model,
like a farmer.
What even is Dead Man? Dead Man is a rather unusual character.
Ben, I say the question. Hold on, let me do the question.
Sorry, go on. We'll go back. Go on.
Ben. Oh,
yeah.
I got milk in my beard. Ben.
Yeah.
What even is Dead Man? Are you happy now? Force that bit.
Dead Man,
yes,
is a ghost from the DC universe.
Oh, he's a
ghost. He's a very significant ghost in the DC universe because he's
Ben,
usually.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's
on.
actually a very good name for this episode.
What?
A very significant ghost.
Very significant ghost. Right, we've a toss up between oh how lovely and a very significant ghost. Here, hang on, let me write that down because I will forget.
No, I've written it down. It's all right.
Okay, wonderful.
You keep going.
Dead Man is Boston Brand. Boston Brand was an aerialist or trapeze artist, depending on who writes him.
Like Robin?
In a circus. Not exactly like Robin. Exactly like Robin. And unfortunately for him, he was murdered.
No good.
He was murdered. And upon his death, his presence was summoned by the Hindu god of balance. In DC, she's given a very specific name. It's Rama Kushnu. I might get that wrong.
I think that's right.
For anyone that can correctly pronounce Hindu-based deities made up by comic book companies, please get in touch with the podcast and let me know. So Ramakushnu needed an agent on Earth because the balance between good and evil had been tipped in the wrong direction. Ramakushnu resides in kind of a Himalayan Tibetan region called Nanda Parbat. And Nanda Parbat is a fictional location that can't be found by evildoers who are still alive. Basically, what Nanda Parbat is, it's a place where those who committed evil in their life go and spend eternity. That's what they do. They go there and they kind of rehabilitate in Nanda Parbat. It's all very exciting.
Is Nanda Parbat not where the League of Ra's al Ghul live?
Yeah, so if you watch the Arrow universe from the CW, that is exactly where Ra's al Ghul and the...
Oh, you're saying Raish. Interesting.
Did you say Ras?
I said Raz.
Okay. I'll say... It doesn't really
No, you
matter.
say Raish. Look, you stick to
You say
your
potato,
guns.
I say potato.
Well, Ben, if you say potato, you're an idiot. The word is potato.
Yeah. Fair. So Ra's al Ghul, if you watch the CW universe, that's where he resides. But to be honest, I don't place much stock in the CW universe of Arrow because they took the entire Batman arc where Batman becomes the heir to the League of Assassins and the Demon's Head, and they just gave it to Oliver Queen, which makes no sense.
Well, it does because he's TV's Batman.
Yeah, he is TV's Batman. That's very true. It is just a Batman series by any other name. It's not at all like the comic book. So yeah, could have just made a decent Batman series out of that and called it a day. But sure, there you go. Speaking of Batman, Dead Man has become mostly famous for his team-ups with Batman. The wonderful creative team of Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams.
We've had them before.
We've had them before. They're very famous for their 70s run. Just to go back a little bit. He was originally introduced in the series Strange Adventures number 205 in 1967. So he's been around for a while.
That predates Moon Knight.
That predates Moon Knight by a bit, I think, by quite a bit. So he's been around a good while, and he was created by Carmine Infantino, which is the most American Italian name I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, sounds like a comic book character.
Yep. and Arnold Drake. Arnold Drake.
Boring name.
Yeah, not as American Italian as Carmine Infantino. So he was created by the two of them, but he kind of rose to prominence when he started teaming up with Batman in the Brave and the Bold series, which was written by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. He has had something of an ill-fated return to the spotlight recently, because DC, for some bizarre reason, keeps giving Neil Adams his own series.
Right.
Because Neil Adams is very famous, and they're kind of trying to cash in on that as much as possible. But Neil Adams has kind of lost the plot.
Gone mad.
A bit of a Frank Miller.
Chris
There's a
Claremont.
reason they didn't. Yeah, exactly. There's a reason they didn't let him write his own stuff back in the day. And he has a new Dead Man series out, and it has been described of what it would be like to live in the mind of an insane person.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, but like not a good insane person.
Oh, one
just
of the bad
someone
ones.
who's kind of continually loses their keys and takes that out in the world.
Like me.
Yeah, exactly. Living inside Mick's head. But anyway, really interesting character. What he can do is, as an agent of change for Ramakrishna, he can possess the living, which is what makes him unique in the DC universe.
Okey-doke.
Possession is not really a foregone conclusion in the DC universe. Ghosts can kind of interact with the world, but they can't necessarily possess. He can, in order to directly affect the actions of the living.
Oh.
And he became really famous for a number of reasons. First of all, he's a real smart ass. He's a real smart ass.
He's a wiseacre.
He's a wiseacre or wisecracker, depending on how you arrange those letters. And he's a big fan, and he was a nice foil for Batman in his more serious adventures, because he would try and lighten it up. And he's one of the big cosmic entities in DC. So you have like the Spectre, you have the Phantom Stranger, you have all that kind of thing. And what he is, he's kind of the levity to all of that.
He's the gentleman ghost.
Yeah, he's not a gentleman by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, he's a bit of an L character, a cad.
He's a bit of an L cad. Is kind of his whole thing. But a cad with a heart of gold, a non-beating heart of gold. And yeah, so he's kind of very famous for all those runs, and all of those don't really embrace what I think is a really cool element of his character, and that's the horror element of his character. Do you know who Kelly Jones is, Michael?
Rings a bell. Was she from Saved by the Bell?
She wasn't. That's Kelly Kapowski.
Very good, Ben.
Her poster still hangs above my bedroom wall to this day. Kelly Kapowski. Yeah. So Kelly Jones is kind of famous for a very heavily inked, macabre, kind of twisted style of comic book art.
Give me an example.
He did the Batman Vampire series.
Oh, that guy.
DC.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of the covers for the Nightfall series when that came out.
When Batman became a Dracula.
Yeah, exactly. The big, ovular, muscular, huge spinal column, twisted forms. But this isn't your Liefeld type of thing.
Yeah.
This is much more a Mike Mignola, heavily stylized form. And a lot of the work is quite beautiful and very disturbing when you read it. So he really suits those kind of horror genres. He has frequently worked on Dead Man, so much so that DC released a trade paperback of his collected runs on Dead Man from different points in time. And he co-wrote those with Mike Barron, and he illustrated them, and they make for some of the most disturbing, uncomfortable reading.
Oh, very good.
That you'll ever sink your teeth into. So that has been the informing principle of a lot of what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to give you the first 4 episodes today.
Right.
And then if you like the tone, we're going to do a tight 8. Classic tight 8.
Oh, we love a tight 8 here at the podcast.
And
not a flappy 13. Or a bloody cavernous 22.
A cavernous 22 can go fuck itself on this podcast.
Yeah, get out of here.
We'll have less of the cavernous 22s, the cav 22s.
Very good.
So you're going to listen to the first 4. If you fancy hearing about the next 4, let me know.
Right. What's the format here? Are we in a Netflix type of situation, do you think? Are you imagining?
It's it's definitely going to be a Netflix unrated kind of situation.
Well, it won't be Netflix. Well, maybe, let's say it's Netflix after Disney have launched their own streaming, and then Netflix have had to team up with DC.
That's fair enough.
To replace,
That's fair enough.
To replace the Disney stuff they've lost.
That lost revenue. Yeah, that lost revenue. I'm not giving it to CW, because CW will fuck it up and make it all tame and make them sexy and stuff. And
that's great, Ben.
No, that's not what we're here to do, Michael.
Everybody would have leather trousers.
Yeah, but I don't want Deadpool to have leather trousers. For those that aren't familiar with his appearance, sorry, dead man, whoops. For those who aren't familiar with his appearance, he wears a big, to be fair, it could work in leather. He wears a big red jumpsuit with a high-ass collar.
Yeah.
And depending on who draws him, he either has just a simple male face painted all white, or he has a skull. He's an emaciated skeleton inside a suit.
I believe it's pronounced Skellington.
Skellington. Sorry. He's an emaciated skeleton.
Yes.
In a kind of tattered red jumpsuit, but it depends on who draws him. So anyway, the aesthetic of this particular series. Oh, first of all, what we want, the quote that I want to start this off with is, and what really informed a lot of this is mystery attracts mystery, and that's a quote from H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, I like him.
I don't like him. You are a tremendous fan of.
Well, I don't know about that. He was a real bad bloke and a bit of a racist and a bit of a sexist and almost certainly some sort of weirdo.
Well, you enjoy a Lovecraftian theme then, if not Lovecraft himself.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, we're going to borrow that, and that'll inform kind of our tone as we go along, I suppose. So, in terms of sheer aesthetic, we'll get into that in a second. Anyway, for episode 1, so I want you to picture episode 1.
Okay,
so
I'm picturing episode 1.
Episode really, really simple. Boston Brand in the comic books died after he was shot in the middle of his trapeze act. So he's tumbling down to the ground. So as a nice nod to that, what we're going to have is we're going to start immediately with someone falling to the ground.
Very good.
Okay? In a nice, not necessarily slow motion, but we get to see his face. And what we might do is we might have a spinning thing that's constantly fixed on his face. So the surrounding spins with him, and he's coming down. And then right before he smacks the ground, we see this massive smirk. Okay? And what we see then is a hand, and it tightens around like a red kind of cloth thing. And you see himself pull himself out of this drop. And what we see is an aerial, you know silk, aerial silks?
I do.
You know this type of thing? Yeah. So this is very popular now because I was trying to come up with a circus angle. But to be honest, a modern day circus is not really a thing.
No, who goes to the circus now? Only bad people.
Yeah. Only bad people who enjoy watching animals suffer horribly.
Yeah.
So I kind of tried to update it a bit. So we have an aerial silkist instead, is what we're going to do. Aerial silks.
An aerial silkist? Is that what they're called?
I don't know. I couldn't. A silk master? A silkman. So anyway, he tumbles out of that. We see that smirk, and we see his face is painted in a skull. We see a skull painted onto his face, and he pulls himself out of that dive, and he hauls himself up. We pan out a little bit. We hear that scream from the crowd.
Oh, very good.
And this is our introduction to Boston Brand. Boston Brand is before he died, was a bit of an egomaniac. He kind of always pushed his act, and he thought he was the greatest at what he did, and he refused to perform with Annette, etc., etc., etc.
Who's Annette? Was she his love interest?
Annette was a former love interest that she kind of let herself go, called it a day. And as we all know, a net that lets itself go is no good to anyone.
No, it's just a collection of ropes.
It's just a collection of ropes lying on the ground in a tattered formation. Anyway, he's a bit of a ladies' man. He's very arrogant. And basically, this is all introduced in this moment with that smirk. So that smirk is really, really important. In terms of who plays Deadpool, I have really struggled here. Sorry, Dead Man. Oh, God, that's getting really irritating. God, the marketing's good for that film, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dead Man has been a massive struggle for me because he's a huge smartass, but you also need someone with this bizarre physicality for when he becomes the ghost.
Yeah.
because the ghost is this really elongated, like stretched form that twists and turns. So in terms of physicality, who I was really thinking of was Doug Jones.
Yeah, well, Ben, look, I was there with you before you even said it.
Yeah, because you put him in a bunch of prosthetics. I don't want this to be a CGI ghost. What you want is like a skull face that's like very Red Skull kind of, but even more tightly, put in and elongated and strange. That's really what you want here. And in terms of that, you need Doug Jones. But when you want a wisecracking personality, you can't really have Doug Jones.
No, that's not what you get Doug Jones for.
That's not what you get Doug Jones for. Yeah, you get him. So I have Doug Jones penciled in for a character a little bit later down the line, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
What I was thinking was maybe if you had Doug Jones play the physical part, you would have someone else do the voice. But that would be very unsettling, I thought. What you really need is someone with a lot of charisma to do that. And who I kind of landed on. Originally, he's a very brash Boston guy. That's who he is. He's from
Mark Wahlberg.
It's Marky Mark. You saying I'm a ghost? You saying I have to balance the scales of justice?
That's
Is
right.
What you saying?
Yeah, I'd watch that.
Why would you say that?
Ben, I'd watch that.
Why would you say that, Ramakushnu?
I'd watch that for hours.
I'll fight you right now, you Hindu god of change. Screw you.
That's really good. I watched that.
So
I would watch that all day.
I would watch that. But unfortunately, no. I was thinking more your smart Alec character that we have these days, your Chris Pratts, or your, something along those lines. Something with a real, maybe even your Alan Tudyk's. Maybe even a Tudyk in there. Not overtly like I'm the best, but smug. You want a smug character.
I'm on tenterhooks, Ben. You don't have someone, do you?
I don't.
Oh, for
I don't.
God's sake,
that's
I
the
thought
problem.
This was all building to a reveal.
That's the problem. I can't lock down who will play this man in a TV series. But anyway, we're running out of time, so I'm going to keep going here.
Okay.
So anyway, as it turns out, we're not in America at all. Where we are this time is in Paris. We're actually in Paris.
Okay.
At this point in the world. Because a massive amount of street performing is still done in Paris. That whole trapeze kind of culture, silks, that kind of thing, is still very strong there. So I felt that was a better setting for it as we go. So anyway, he pulls out of that. We have the big smirk, the gasp. And we come back, and then what we see is a bunch of the performers in a bar. Okay?
Yeah.
And we have him talking to a very important character. There's a very suave character in the bar with him. It's kind of a bohemian bar. They're sitting around a table, chatting about the performance, how it went. And this man reveals himself to be a guy called, now I'm not going to get this, Loomis Waxach or Waxache. I can't remember how it's pronounced. There are two characters in the Dead Man universe that are very important. One is Loomis, and Loomis is a Tibetan midget that runs a detective agency. And the other is Madame Waxache, and she's a New Orleans voodoo priestess. Okay? However, unfortunately, when both of these characters created, they're a little bit racist, and I was very uncomfortable with them as a concept. So what I did, more or less, was I borrowed the names and some of the character traits, and I've combined them into one character that's a little less racist than both.
Very good.
So what this character is he's the
fortune teller. Voodoo midget.
There will be no midgetry or overly racist stereotypes of black women.
Oh, okay.
We've avoided both, and we're going to have him played by Idris Elba.
Oh.
And Idris Elba is going to be the kind of, in this particular realm, he's going to be a street performer that specializes in fortune telling, sleight of hand, and escape artistry.
Is Idris not a bit too big of a star to be a supporting character in a TV show these days?
Don't think so, because he's less of a supporting character in my show and more of a moral compass.
Okay.
So I think we can get him.
Okay.
I think we can get him. He still does Luther. He still goes back and does BBC's Luther. Like he'll do it. He'll do it. So anyway, they're having a chat in the bar, and he's basically doing his whole like suave Idris thing, and it's all English, and and he does that whole thing, and then he says, you're going to get yourself killed. You know that, don't you? Like, it's going to happen one day. You don't use a net. It's bloody stupid. And Boston says, I don't need the net, blah, blah, blah. It gives you your whole cool guy spiel. Don't need a net. It's hubris. We're setting up the hubris.
Marky Mark.
Marky Mark. I don't need a net. I'll kill a net. Send me a net right now. I've got it. So for the purposes of this podcast, he's going to be played by Marky Mark, but that's not how we want Boston Brand played.
I'd watch it.
And what happens is Idris turns around and goes, I don't mean just the net, mate. And we see that Idris is looking over his shoulder to the woman who has been looking at Boston Brand all night, okay? And Boston excuses himself and he goes off to hit on this woman. And the next day we find out she's married.
Oh, classic TV show. Who's the lady? Is she a sexy lady?
She's kind of interchangeable, but I figured in the kind of tradition of the podcast, it's Christina Milian.
Hooray!
Hooray in Paris. You could also slot in a sexy female actress there as you choose. I don't know, who do we have who's good on TV?
I don't know. Bloody Selena Gomez.
Go on, have a Selena Gomez. Stick her in there. It's grand. Unfortunately, she's married. We find that out the next day. The man who tells him this is, of course, Idris. Yeah. Idris is like, she's married. And that's the end of that. And so anyway, he goes, I don't care. It doesn't matter. More hubris. We're really pushing that angle, And we have another performance. And it goes excellently as well. A little bit tighter every time. And so we come back, and we're kind of doing this in repetition. We're getting used to who Boston Brand is as a person.
Right.
Okay? And then we come to an evening that's less pleasant.
Uh-oh.
Okay?
Kind of ominous.
What happens is Boston is in a bar. He's relaxing. And he's chatting with Idris again. And Idris is on the same thing. He's like, you need to leave that woman alone. You need to stay away from her. She's going to get you killed.
This is just an excuse for you to do an English accent. That's pretty good.
Absolutely. And he's like, no. But then in the bar, we see Boston is getting a little bit drunker and a little bit drunker as the evening wears on. And we see a father who grabs his son a little bit hard by the wrist.
Oh.
Okay? And all of a sudden...
Why is his son in the bar?
Yeah, well, look, we can get around to that later. It's France. It's a whole different ballgame. He's drinking wine, smoking cigarettes.
Irresponsible parenting.
He's hitting on his father's second wife's daughter. Like, it's a whole thing.
Okay.
And Boston gets up. He goes straight over, and he starts a fight with this guy. Oh, no. He's like, hey, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Like, hey. Like, stay away from the kid. It's a whole thing. Your man gives him a hard time for being American, obviously. Classic thing. You are American, you don't understand. Fuck off.
This is our culture. I can slap this boy if I want to.
And this kicks off, okay? So it ends up in a massive fight. Boston Brand goes swinging, like he's completely drunk. He becomes extremely emotional. Idris manages to pull him off.
What's Idris' real name again in the show?
Loomis.
Oh, Loomis. We'll call him Loomis. Just call him Loomis.
So Loomis hauls him off. They go for a walk. They cool off. And he goes, one day, man, karma's going to get you. Like, karma's a whole thing. Like, it's going to get you. And Boston Brand replies with the famous adage of karma's a bitch anyway.
Yeah.
And he strolls off into the evening. So the next day, we're back on the trapeze thing. Unfortunately, this time we have a complete replay of the scene. The tumble, the fall down. He does the grip. We see the smirk. And then all of a sudden, we see his hand slide from the silk completely.
No good.
And he hits the ground. And this is because this time he's covered in blood. And he can't get any grip. And he starts to pass out on the floor of his stage. And what we hear is, to end this episode, hello, Mr. Brand, I'm the bitch.
Very good.
And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, very
okay,
good.
so that's the end of that first episode. So obviously we're introducing ourselves to Rama Kushnu. She's about to make her big appearance in the next episode. Okay? So we're going to start with episode 2, and this is the episode that we're going to title Mystery Attracts Mystery. That's going to be our whole thing.
I like it. I like that title.
Yeah, and basically now we have a very muted color palette. Okay? Everything is a bit grey and green and deathly.
Like the land of the dead.
That. Now, what we're not doing here, Michael, and what's really important is we're not doing an all black setting. I'm not having wander through space. I bloody hate that.
Okay.
So this time we're going to be in the bar that he's been frequenting, but this time it's muted and it's stilted and it's wrong. Okay? There's no music playing like there was previously. There's no atmosphere. There's nothing like that. Have you seen the TV show Hannibal?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we want is a soundscape that's a little bit similar to Hannibal, where we have all these creeping sounds that are kind of coalescing and trickling down things and causing havoc. Okay? And he's going to hear something in the distance. It's going to sound like a memory or a distant memory or something like that, and he's going to head towards that. Okay?
Is it a football match in Florence?
It's not a football match. It's more like an aerial silk arena where the audience is applauding. And because he's an egomaniac...
Boston.
Yeah, exactly.
Boston,
he heads towards that, except in a French accent. Boston. Yeah.
Boston.
So, he comes to a thing, and then all of a sudden we have this explosion of color. I want you to immediately picture Doctor Strange. I want you to marry that with Legion.
Okay.
But I want you to have it way more organic. We don't have mirrors this time. We have shifting organic forms, spinal columns twisting in bright colors. Very kind of Mexican Day of the Dead, H.P. Lovecraft. All of this
is explode, Ben.
All of this, yeah. So there's a lot of like human skeletons revolving in space. That kind of thing. Skeletons, my apologies. And we have Boston wander through this, and he's like, "Oh Jesus Christ, this is so twisted." And this time, Ramakrishna, he hears her voice, and she says, "You should take a look at yourself." And he feels around, and he realizes that he's a skeleton. Okay,
he's a what, Ben?
Twisted skeleton. My apologies.
Very good.
He's a skeleton. And Marky Mark gets really freaked out. Where are my guns? Where are my cannons?
Where's my skin?
Yeah, and he gets really freaked out. And we realize that he's kind of becoming this dead man. So she starts to have a chat with him about what's right and what's fair. She asks him, do you think it's fair that you slept with this woman? Do you think it's fair that you did this? Okay? And obviously, because he's a man of short temper, he's like, of course it's fair. Like, what do you mean fair? Life's not fair. And she's like, and then she says like something like, this isn't life. So this is a completely different ballgame. So we have all this going on, and then eventually she comes around to the crux of the matter, and she says, I need a champion of balance. And what she asks is, do you accept?
Right.
And he says, no, I don't accept. Like, why do I have to do your dirty work? Why can't you do it? And she says she's not allowed to direct, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of exposition, so we understand what's going on.
Is she just a disembodied voice?
No, she is played by the wonderful Indriya Varma, who played Ilaria Sands in Game of Thrones.
The
Oberon Martell's wife, or paramour.
The mother of the Sand Snakes.
That's the one. That's the one.
Good, okay.
So it will be played by her, because she is actually of Indian descent, and I felt that would fit a little bit better. Plus she has that kind of presence that you need for a goddess of balance and whatnot. She's very elegant, she's very composed, and yet she can get real pissed off sometimes, which is what you need.
And then she's a sexy older lady, which we know you like.
I'm a huge fan. Oh God, revealing so much of myself on one podcast. So in this case, the colors are still explosive. They're really vibrant. You want to think kind of the powder festival in India.
Yeah,
that kind of
that's
thing.
what I was
thinking.
thinking.
Explosive colors going off everywhere. But yet with very macabre imagery. We want like human hearts beating in the corner, things like that. Like it's real organic as we go. And she says, you don't have a choice. You want to stay. This is the only way you can stay. So Boston Brand thinks he's got this. Boston Brand thinks, you know what? You're telling me all this stuff. You're telling me I can inhabit human bodies. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this job for you, and then I'm going to steal a body, and I'm going to go live my life. Okay? So that's what he's thinking. So she says, the job is very simple. Your first task is very simple. It's right here in Paris. So she sends him to a cemetery in Paris where his funeral is taking place. Okay?
Very good.
So he comes down. He's quite, at this point, he's fleshed out again. It's kind of him in his stage makeup, but much paler. Okay? And we go back to this world of muted colors, these muted blues, these muted greens, and he drifts down and he watches his own funeral. And he's delighted to see at his own funeral what it is it's a lot of the women he slept with, it's a lot of this thing, it's a lot of that thing. And then he's kind of unhappy to see that Loomis is there as well.
Loomis.
And Loomis is quite upset about the whole thing, obviously. Now, Loomis is not a con artist, as it turns out. Loomis has a genuine connection with the other side. Due to his background from New Orleans and his kind of Indian heritage as well. He has a genuine connection to the afterlife. So he watches as Boston Brand possesses another human being, and then he can't see Boston Brand as a ghost, but he can see that someone is being possessed.
Interesting.
So he's really his interest is really piqued by what's possessed something at his friend's funeral. So what happens is, yes,
Ben, just from a visual perspective, when he possesses someone and we're seeing from Loomis's perspective, will we see the actor who usually plays Boston Brand, or will we see the actor who plays the body he's inhabiting?
No, we'll see the actor who plays the body he's inhabiting, which makes a more interesting character because they'll have to mimic the original actor. So you'll get to see this change. I think aesthetically and character-wise, it can make for a very interesting episode every time because we'll usually be introduced to that character and then we'll be shown that character as Boston Brand. So it might make for entertaining. And Boston Brand, for me, will be more comedic in this very serious world of death. And I will keep the levity as much as possible with the horror elements. It'll make for some nice kind of juxtaposition moments, hopefully, as we go along. So anyway, Loomis is very interested. Boston doesn't really understand why he's there. He doesn't really understand why he's there. Because Ramakrishna, for her inevitable... or for her all-knowing, omnipotent kind of quality, is extremely mysterious, hence the name of the episode. And she doesn't ever give him a direct task. She just tells him where his task will be, and he has to figure it out. So, as he's watching...
like the TV show Quantum Leap.
Exactly. Like Quantum Leap. But better, hopefully. So, anyway, what happens is... He notices a pair of twins who are very creepy and out of place. They're two little girls.
A pair of creepy twins, or as they're also known, twins.
A pair of creepy twins. So, Boston leaves the funeral to go investigate these twins. And then what happens is we jump scene.
No.
We jump scene.
To where?
To Dat America.
Oh,
Dat America.
classic.
Where a young man who is traveling by bus... kind of has a moment. He's staring at the window absent-mindedly in space. He's bathed in fluorescence. You can't really recognize him at all. And what you see is he stops in this bus right outside a circus. Okay? He goes in towards the circus, and all of a sudden his face kind of flashes in this very twisted grin. Okay? And then the next thing we know, we see him go into the tent.
Right.
And we don't see anything else after that. It goes completely dark, and then all you hear is screaming and roaring, and all kinds of horror breaks loose. Okay? And then we flash back to the graveyard. So that's going to be our little juxtaposition. It's going to be our little change of scene to keep us going, to keep us invested. And we come back, and we're in the funeral. So Boston has been following these two girls as they go around the graveyard. They come to a mausoleum. And they start having a very unusual conversation. They start talking about, do you remember when we were alive? Do you remember how we looked? We had like we were fully grown, we were powerful, we were strong, and now we're forced to possess forms like these, weak forms like these. So Boston Brad very quickly realizes that these two twins are possessed by another two twins.
Yet more ghosts.
Yes, yet more ghosts, exactly. And these two twins are actually a pair of sisters, and they're very powerful witches. And they've come back after a long absence, and what they're going to do is they're going to raise an army of the dead, and they're going to send them to take over part of Paris.
Classic. I think that has actually happened to Paris in real life.
Probably has. Probably. So... what we actually find out in the course of this, and over the course of this, he has to join forces, and Loomis has investigated all this because he was interested in who came to the funeral, and him and Loomis team up. They realize, oh my God, you're still alive, oh my God, blah, 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 and Loomis becomes kind of his moral compass.
Right.
He's like, you have to do this, you have to fix this problem. You're the only one that can do it.
Yeah.
And so we have this whole thing. This is actually a storyline that was written by Kelly Jones and Mike Barron, so it's being worked into the overall narrative of the thing. The original took place in New Orleans, but we're going to keep it in Paris for this one, on that one. So, unfortunately, in the course of this, what happens is the zombies actually get raised, and Boston is exposed to what happens to spirits that can't leave.
Right.
Which is the exact argument that he was having with Ramakrishna.
Okay.
About just inhabiting for as long as possible. What happens is they're decayed and very twisted, and we see a lot of people die. A lot of people that Boston knows who are still at the funeral get eaten.
Not Christina Milian, surely.
No, Christina Milian didn't turn up. She didn't really love him. She didn't really love him, Michael. I'm sorry. She didn't really love him.
Mike from Saskatchewan will be turning in his grave.
But what we get to see here is Boston tries to stop this, and he can't do it in one man's form, and we watch him get this man's form eaten.
Oh, Boston,
okay?
You dick.
So Boston is eaten. He doesn't learn what he needs to do this kind of thing. And Loomis, who actually has proper sorcery, is able to defend himself against this kind of thing. He takes out a mojo hand from his pocket. A mojo hand is a voodoo artifact imbued with a lot of power. And he uses that to ward off the zombies. Unfortunately, over the course of the thing, he figures out a way to trick the sisters, and he begins to understand that it's not necessarily the spirits that are trapped there, but it's malicious spirits that want to stay that are the problem. It's not those that are brought into indentured servitude. It's those. So there's a very philosophical element here about, learning your time and accepting, if you will, one of the 7 stages of grief, which may or may not be part of the theme of the whole run of this series. But this one is all about this. Yeah, absolutely. This one is all about acceptance. We're going to do it not necessarily in the order that they normally come in, but this one's going to be about accepting your place in the world. And unfortunately, during the fracas,
fracas, I would say, but okay.
Fracas, whatever. Loomis becomes gravely wounded.
Oh no, not Driss.
Yeah,
not DJ Driss.
Not DJ Driss.
But he's playing a set in the Odyssey on Sunday night.
I know. And how are we supposed to see him now? We can never see it now. So Loomis becomes gravely wounded, and this is a huge moment for Boston. Anyway, Boston thinks that he's about to die. Okay,
Loomis or Boston?
Loomis. He thinks that Loomis is about to die, and he's like, maybe I can possess you, maybe I can help you, maybe I can. He's like, and Loomis is very, very clear. He's like, don't ever possess my body. He's very firmly against that happening, and he's like, I'll die on my terms. It's fine. But then he doesn't die.
Oh, good.
And it's a mystery. We don't know why he doesn't die.
Oh, mysteries upon mysteries.
And we don't know why he doesn't die. But anyway, as soon as he's back on his feet...
But why doesn't he die, Ben?
As soon as... Well, Ramakrishna
No, don't tell me.
Oh, no, well, we can, because it's part of the tension. Ramakrishna has actually intervened here. And offered Loomis a temporary deal. She says, I'll extend your life if you agree to show him the path. So,
very good.
Loomis is going to be his gal Friday from this point on.
So they're kind of bound together now.
They were best friends originally. They were circus performers together or street artists together. And basically, Boston needs him to show him exactly what you can do. And he's like, Loomis actually makes an argument as to why can't I be your avatar on Earth. She says, you're not imbalanced. You're a good man. Boston Brand is perfectly imbalanced to serve as my avatar.
Oh, that's very good.
So
is that you or is that from the comic?
No, that's me.
Oh, that's very good.
Well, no, it's partly from the comic. It's never really explained why Boston Brand is specifically chosen. But yeah, we can work that in as we go. So he won't explain this to Boston, but that's the way it's going to go. However, Boston hasn't learned his lesson, and this is where the real horror element of this one comes in. Boston runs off in someone else's body. He possesses one of the survivors.
Classic Marky Mark.
And as they're being he's like, okay, I'm going to get away now. It's fine. Idris is cool. It's cool. So he goes away. He survives for about 6 weeks.
Okay.
In this body. And then what happens is he starts to meld with the person he's possessed. And he starts to lose himself in this person. And he starts to become that person. And he starts to go a little bit insane. And what happens is that's reflected in his outward appearance. His appearance starts to become a lot more dead man-like. Okay? So he starts to look more like the ghost. And the problem with the dead man ghost is, in my version, and this is based on a statue that I saw that was made by DC, his costume isn't made of leather or cloth or anything like that. It's made of sinew from muscle.
Ugh.
So as he continues to possess one of the living, his collarbones start to come up
Ugh.
around the back of his neck,
Ugh.
which makes the collar, and the sinew starts to stretch up with him, and he starts to turn into this monster.
Ugh.
His skin starts to sink in, and he pulls back, and he becomes a skeleton, a living kind of skeleton. My apologies.
He sounds like a Hellraiser, like a pinhead.
Yeah, but it's not going to be. He's not going to drip or be in agony or anything like that. But his physical appearance starts to atrophy, and he goes mad.
Mm-hmm.
So he becomes this imbalanced spirit, and then he becomes tethered to the graveyard.
Okay.
Because he hasn't accepted his role as Ramakrishna's agent, so he's not able to move past where he belongs. So he's tethered. So eventually Loomis manages to find him, and he says, "Do you understand now? Do you understand why this isn't possible?" And he says, "Yes, I understand now." And so he's kind of strong-armed into accepting the deal from Ramakrishna. Okay? Now, the last thing that we're going to do, because we're way out of time, my apologies, the last thing that we're going to do is we flash one more time to That America.
That America.
And the same young man...
Who's this now? Who's playing
The same
him?
young man that we came upon in the beginning. I'm not going to reveal that yet. We can't reveal that yet. The same young man that we saw in the beginning is back in America. This time he's driving in a car, and he comes up to a graveyard.
Okay.
And this time, what we see a funeral taking place.
Right.
And again, we hear the sermon being given, we hear the tears, we hear the misery, we hear this. He goes up over the hill, okay? And we follow him directly as he goes up over a hill. But before we get to see the other side of the hill and the ceremony that's taking place, our camera angle stops. And all we get to see before the scene ends or all we get to hear is more screaming, more misery, torment. And then the last thing we get to see is a human hand flicked over the hill. So the human hand will slap down into focus, and we'll see that. And that'll be the end of episode 2. Now, unfortunately, I have to leave it there, Michael, because we're mad out of time. There are 6 episodes left in my run. Would you like to hear more?
Yes, Ben, I would like to hear more. I want to know who this mysterious bad egg is.
Yes, he's an awful bad egg.
And I want to know what the connection between him and Mr. Deadman is.
Yes, Mr. Deadman is.
Yes, I would also like to hear more about some sexy ladies who presumably are going to show up in this show.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Yeah, look, Ben, you've got me. You've got me with 2 episodes. You've lured me in. I'm seeing specters of some American Gods influence. A little bit of Pushing Daisies, maybe. Even. I'm getting some Pushing Daisies here.
He's right there with me. He's right there with me.
I'm seeing all those influences. If you were to make a sizzle reel, they're maybe the type of shows you might include.
There'd be some of that. So, DC, if you're interested, if you want me to reboot your series and not make your characters wear leather or tame down their arcane aspects, give me a shout. Give the podcast a shout. Michael's awful good at getting down to the nitty gritty. I'm awful good at tropes and stuff.
And I read all the emails.
And he reads all the emails. He does all the legwork. I'm just here to look pretty. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know who Deadman is?
No.
Let us know.
I always forget when you're not talking to me.
What do you think? Let us know. Do you like him? Do you have any favourite storylines? Do you not like him? Do you have any other Ghost characters that you really enjoy? Did you think that the bloody Venom trailer looked like Spawn 2? Let us know down below. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Ben, yes.
Let's remember. I've had a few tweets asking us what we thought about Infinity War. So if there's anyone else who has any specific questions or comments or tweets or whatever Insta messages are called, DMs, slip them on by to us, and we'll see what people thought about Infinity War and what we thought about Infinity War, and we'll talk about Infinity War too.
Yeah, next week. Be great. Next week. All right, bye everybody.
Bye. Dead man. Yeah, that was good. Oh, I haven't stopped recording.